Good morning, dear students. In the earlier video, you have learned the derivation of potential energy stored in a spring, and you also learned various forms of energy and the law of conservation of energy. So, in this class, you will learn power and collisions. So, we have three types of collisions. Yeah, that you will learn power and types of collisions. Yeah, we define power like this. Power is defined as the time rate at which work is done or energy is transferred. Yes, we define like this. Power is defined as the time rate at which work is done or energy is transferred. For suppose, if W is the work done, if W is the work done in time T, so then we can define the average power. P average is equal to work done divided by time taken, or if delta W is the work done in delta T time, then this ratio is called as power, average power. How do we define it? Is the ratio of work done to time taken simply. Now can we write the equation for instantaneous power? Yes. So instantaneous power. If we don't use any subscript here, that means it is instantaneous power. So again we take average power. But what do we do, guys? Whenever we have when does an average value becomes instantaneous value, just we need to apply limit delta t tends to 0, then this average value, then the average power becomes instantaneous power, that is dw by dt. Now d by dt of w, work done. How do we define work done? So it is the scalar product of force and displacement. It is a scalar product of force and displacement. Now, so this is instantaneous force and this is instantaneous displacement. So for a small interval of time, f is constant, right? So we can take it out. Now we can write f bar dot dx bar by dt. So for a small duration of time, f is a constant, so we can take it out. Now we are taking it out, and for dot we are taking dot. Now differentiate x, dx bar by dt. Here dt is the small time and dx bar is the small displacement. So what is this, guys? This is nothing but instantaneous velocity, right? So here what do we write? F bar is equal to, what do we write? This can be written as v bar, instantaneous velocity. So p is equal to, instantaneous power is equal to, it is the scalar product of force and instantaneous velocity of the object. Now let us see the units of power. Units. So here how are we defining power? Work done divided by time taken, isn't it? If W is the work done in time duration T, so this ratio is called as power. So what is the unit of work done? Joule. What is the unit of time? Seconds. So joule per second. Joule per second, or it is also called as watt. Watt, we use capital W. What is the scientist name? So that means 1 watt is equal to 1 joule per second. If 1 joule of work is done in 1 second, then it can be called as the power is equivalent to 1 watt. So watt is SI unit, but we also use non-SI unit, that is horsepower. 1 horsepower. 1 horsepower. This is called as HP. 1 HP is equal to 746 watts. 746 watts. So usually we use this term horsepower in measuring the power of electric motors. Electric motors. So in agriculture we use electric motors, right? So we say 1 HP motor, 2 HP motor, 3 HP motor, and so on. So 1 HP means 746 watts. That means it consumes 746 joules per every 1 second. 746 joules of which energy? An electric motor. If we have 1 HP of an electric motor which has power 1 HP, so it consumes 746 joules of electrical energy for every 1 second. Yes, so watt is the SI unit of power, and horsepower, HP, is also unit of power, but this is non-SI unit. Yes, now in our homes every month we'll get electrical bill, right? So based on which quantity we pay electrical bill? Based on power or energy? So based on energy only we pay bill. So we measure in terms of units. We measure in terms of units. Suppose if we consume 100 units of electrical energy, So the cost per unit is approximately 5 rupees in villages or 7 to 8 rupees in towns. So in villages, so if we consume 100 units of electrical energy, so 100 into 5, so 500 will be our electrical bill. Then what is this unit? So here 1 unit is nothing but energy. So actually that 1 unit is equivalent to 1 kilowatt hour. 1 kilowatt hour. Now I'll tell you what is 1 kilowatt hour. Yes. So 1 kilowatt hour is the unit of energy. Of course, here we have kilo and watt. What is the unit of this watt is unit of power, right? But we don't have 1 kilowatt. We also have hour. So now let us simplify. 1 kilo means 1 into, for kilo stands for 1000, for watt means joule per second. Now hour means convert into SI units, that is 1 hour equal to 60 minutes and how many seconds? 60 seconds. So 1, I'm writing 1 as it is, for kilo 1000, for watt joule per second, for hour we are writing 60 into 60 seconds. So here second gets cancelled. So what do we get? 1000 into 60 into 60, 3600 and joules. So what are we getting here? Joule per second or joule? So we are getting joule. That means 1 kilowatt hour is equal to, if we simplify this one, 3.6 into 10 power 6 joules. 3.6 into 10 power 6 joule. That means 1 kilowatt hour is equal to, so how many joules? 3.6 10 power 6 joules. So if we see reading at our meter, electric meter, yes, here we have digits like this, 1 2 3 4 and digits, and here we have kilowatt hour. That means here reading changes, 1 2 3 4 we have digits here. That means, so in the earlier in the last month, if the reading is 122, after 1 month if this reading is 241, then how do we find? So 241 minus 122, this is our this is the amount of energy we are consuming, that is 241 minus 122. 241 minus 122 is equal, how much do we get? I think, yeah, here we have 11 to the 9 and we have 1. So 119 units. This 119 units in nothing but how much? 119 kilowatt hour. 119 kilowatt hour. That means, so what is the amount of energy we are consuming? 119 into 3 in joules. In joules I am telling. So 119 into 3.6 into 10 power 6 joules. So this is the amount of energy we are consuming in that month. But in units, what is the amount of energy we are consuming? 119 electrical units we are consuming, but 1 unit is equal to how much amount of energy? 3.6 into 10 power 6 joules. Now let us see examples to understand power. Yes, this is the ground we have, and we have person 1. He is lifting an object. Which has weight, not mass. The weight of this object is 1000 newtons, and he is lifting this object 2 meters height. So how much height he is lifting? 2 meters height, and the time taken for this person is 2 seconds, and the time taken for this person is 2 seconds. And we have person 2, and he is also lifting the similar object. 1000 newton. The weight means the gravitational force. The weight of the subject is 1000 newtons, and he is also lifting the object. 2 meters. Yeah, person 2, he is also lifting the object in the upward direction 2 meters. But he is taking let's say 5 seconds. Now what is the work done by both persons? So the work done by this person, let us call W1. So how much is the force he is exerting? Upward. So in order to move the object upward, he has to apply force in the upward direction, right? So force into displacement into, what is the angle between force and displacement? He is applying force in the upward direction, and the displacement of the object is also in the upward direction. So cos 0, 1. So what is the work done by him? 2000 joules. But what about the work done by him again? So work done by the second person. So he is also exerting the force in the upper in order to lift this one slowly. So he has to apply force. How much is that? So 1000 newtons, right? So he has to apply to lift the object. Minimum force is 1000 newtons into 2 meters into cos 0. Cos 0, y 0, he has to exert force in the upward direction, and the displacement of the object is also in the upward direction. So cos 0, 1. So again the work done by this person is 2000 joules. But what about the power of this person? Power is equal to, what is the formula? W1 by work done divided by time taken. So 2000 divided by, what is the time taken? 2. So what is the power here? 2000 by 2. So 100, sorry, not 100, 1000 watts. 1000 watts. Now let us calculate power of this person, P2. So W2 divided by T2. So again the work done is same, but what is the amount of time taken? 5. So 5 ones are 5 fours are. So how much do we get? 400 watt. Do you understand now who is more powerful? Both persons are doing the same work, but he is doing that work in less time, in 2 seconds, but he is doing this work in 5 seconds. That means who is powerful? The person 1 is powerful than person 2. Do you understand what is power here? Work done is same in both cases, but he is doing the same work in less time, but he is doing the same work in more time. So that is the reason why we say person 1 is powerful than person 2. Now let us take another example. Yeah, how we calculate electrical bill. Suppose I have a water heater. The power of water heater is, let's say, power of heater. Let's say 1000 watts. Power of, usually in our home we use water heater, right? So the power of water heater is 1000 watts. So what does it mean? So for every 1 second the water heater consumes 1000 joules of electrical energy for every 1 second. Suppose for every day we are using the water heater 2 hours. Yes, in our family we have many members. Let us assume that we are using this water heater for 2 hours for every day. So like this we are using 30 days, and 1 unit cost, let's say 5 rupees. 1 unit cost, let's say 5 rupees. Now I want to calculate the electrical, the amount of money which we pay for to heat the water for 1 month. Now I want to calculate the amount of money which we pay to heat the water for every 1 month. So first let us calculate the amount of energy which we are consuming. So amount of energy consumed. Energy consumed means, how do we calculate energy consumed? Power into time taken. Actually power is what, guys? Work done divided by time taken or energy transferred. Yeah, here we are saying work done divided by time taken, or it is also, you can also write it as energy transferred by time taken. So then what do we get? Work equal to power into time, right? So energy is equal to, what do we get? Power into time taken. Actually power equal to energy divided by time taken or work divided by time taken. Now power, what is the power, guys? 1000 watts. Watts means, yeah, take joule per second. Take like this. Yes. Now time taken, how many days we are taking? 30 days. For every day, how many hours? 2 hours. 2 hours means, convert this value into seconds. So 30 days for every day, how many hours? 2 hours, and in seconds, 60 into 60 seconds. Now what do we get? This second gets cancelled. Now let us simplify it. Yes, 1000 is there. This 60 into 60 is there, na? So 1000 into 60 into 60. 1000 into 60 into 60. It can be written as 3.6. It can be written as 3.6 into 10 power 6 kilowatt hour. Kilowatt means here we have hour. So 60 into 60. Now what is the value we have? 30 into 2, 60. So what is this, guys? What is this 3.6 into 10 power 6? This is nothing but 1 kilowatt hour, right? So this whole value is equal to, how much do we get? 60 kilowatt hour. 60, this value is kilowatt hour. Now what will be the total cost? So for 1 unit, how much are we paying? 5 rupees. So for total how many units we are consuming? 60 watts. So total money which we need to pay. So 60 units into, for every 1 unit how much is the cost? 5 rupees. So 65 is a 300 rupees. So this is the amount of money we are paying to heat the water for every 1 month. So this is the way we need to calculate. Now collisions. Yes, what is a collision? If two bodies are in motion while moving, if they touch each other, we say that the two bodies are colliding. If a collision takes place between two vehicles, we say that that is an accident. Yes, based on conservation of momentum and kinetic energy, we classify collisions into three types: elastic collisions, inelastic collisions, and completely inelastic collisions. So we have three types of collisions: elastic collisions, inelastic collisions, and completely inelastic collisions. Now let us discuss about these collisions, types of collisions. Yes, elastic collision. A collision in which both momentum and kinetic energy are conserved is called an elastic collision. So what does it mean, conservation? So here momentum is conserved and kinetic energy are conserved. So for this one, here I'll take an example and I'll explain. Suppose this is a smooth surface we have. Yes, a body is moving with kinetic energy. 10 joules. I'm not telling about mass. And let's say momentum of this body is, let's say, 5 kg meter per second. And second body, the collision. So second body, it is also moving in this direction. Let's say the kinetic energy is 20 joules. And let's say momentum, just I'm telling example. Let's say the momentum of this momentum is, let's say, 10 kg meter per second momentum. Now before the collision, yes, so it is moving this way and it is moving this way. Of course, after some time, let's say the collision is taking place. So after collision taking place, so before the collision, what is the total kinetic energy? Initial total kinetic energy means total energy. 10 plus 20, how much is there? 30 joules. And what is the initial momentum? 5 plus 10. So how much is there? 15 kg meter per second. So after some time the collision takes place and both bodies will be moving this way. So after the collision, if we see the sum of the kinetic energy of the two bodies, again that will be 30 joules. And again if we add that with the individual momentum of the two bodies, that will be again 15 kg meter per second. That means the individual values may vary. It may become 9 and it may become 91. It may become 5, it may become 25 joules when it comes to kinetic energy. Or it may become 15 joules and it may become 15 joules. But the sum of the two kinetic energies, again it will be 30 joules. And the momentum may vary again. The individual kinetic energy and individual momentum may vary, but the total kinetic energy will be 30 joules and the total momentum will be 15 kg meter per second. That means, so here we say that the kinetic energy is conserved because final kinetic energy equal to initial kinetic energy and the final momentum equal to initial momentum. So final and initial, what does that mean? This means after collision, this is before collision. This is momentum after the collision and this is momentum before the collision. If this thing happens, we say that this type, whatever the collision taking place here, this collision is called as elastic collision. So how are we defining elastic collision? A collision in which both momentum and kinetic energy are conserved is called an elastic collision. Conservation means, so kinetic energy is conserved means, so after the collision and before the collision, the kinetic energy must be same. And momentum conserved means, so after the collision and before the collision, momentum must be same. Remember, the individual kinetic energy of the bodies may vary, but the total kinetic energy remains constant. In the similar manner, the individual momentum of the bodies may vary, but the total momentum becomes same. So in which type of collision? In elastic collision. Now let us see inelastic collision. So how are we defining inelastic collision? A collision in which momentum is conserved is called an inelastic collision. A collision in which momentum is only conserved. momentum is only conserved. So are we telling about kinetic energy? That means so kinetic energy is not conserved. That means now let us take the same example here. And before the collision, what is the kinetic energy, guys? And before the collision, the kinetic energy is 30 joules. And before the collision, the total momentum of the two bodies, let's say 15 kg meter per second. And after the collision, usually what happens is certain amount of kinetic energy is lost. Let's say 25 joules. And the final momentum is always equal to initial momentum. So 15 kg meter per second. So here what's happening is after the collision and before the collision, momentum is same. But what about the kinetic energy? After the collision, the kinetic energy is 25 joules only, and before the collision, the kinetic energy is 30 joules. That means so kinetic energy is not conserved. Certain amount of kinetic energy is lost. So what is the difference in kinetic energy here? Here before the collision, 30 joules is there, and after the collision, we have only 25 joules. So that means so 5 joules of kinetic energy is lost. So usually this 5 joules of kinetic energy is converted to thermal energy. The bodies gets heated. So what the bodies which are participating in the collision, the body gets heated. So this 5 joules of kinetic, the loss of kinetic energy is converted to thermal energy. So in the case of inelastic collision, what happens? Only momentum is conserved, but kinetic energy is not conserved. So in this case, what's happening? Final kinetic energy is less than initial kinetic energy. In some cases, the final kinetic energy may be greater than initial kinetic energy. A good example for that one is, now take a bomb. Take a bomb. Before the explosion, it is not exploding now initially. What is the kinetic energy, guys? Initial kinetic energy is 0. Now assume it is splitting into two parts. Assume it is initial momentum also. What is the initial momentum? 0. Initial momentum is 0. That means as a bomb hole, initially it is at rest. So total kinetic energy is 0 and total momentum is also 0. Now assume, for our convenience, let us assume that this is splitting only two parts. Only two parts. So one part is moving this way, another part is moving this way after explosion. So after explosion, some part is moving this way and some part is moving this way, means this part is gaining some kinetic energy and this part is gaining some kinetic energy, right? That means KEF, final kinetic energy, is greater than 0, right? That means they have some kinetic energy, right? And final momentum is again 0, because if this part has positive momentum, this part has negative momentum, but the total momentum again becomes 0. The total momentum again becomes 0. In explosion of a bomb, what happens is the final kinetic energy is greater than initial kinetic energy, but the final momentum is again equal to initial momentum. Before the explosion, the total momentum, so the bomb is not in motion, right? So initial momentum is 0, but after the explosion also the total momentum is 0. Individually the particles may have different momentums, but when you add the total momentum in x direction, so you can write Pf equal to 0 means Pf x equal to 0. That means if this part gains some momentum, positive momentum, this part will gain some negative momentum, and you can write Pfy. In y direction, if some part gains some positive momentum, the other part will gain momentum in minus y direction. So total momentum in y direction becomes 0, and Pf, final momentum in z direction, also becomes 0. So the total momentum after the collision again becomes 0. Individually after the explosion, the individual particles may have momentum, but when you take the vector sum of all the momentums, we get 0. So this is a good example for inelastic collision. Now let us see completely inelastic collision. So completely inelastic collision means, so here we are defining like this: a collision in which the colliding bodies stick and move together after the collision is called completely inelastic collision. Yeah, for this one, a good example here we take. So a body is moving this way. Let's say this is a smooth surface, and a body is moving this way, and here collision is taking place here after some time, and after the collision both bodies stick and move together. Both bodies stick and move together. So this type of collision is called as completely inelastic collision. So completely inelastic means it is also inelastic collision. So what does it mean? In this collision, what happens? Only momentum is conserved. Kinetic energy is not conserved. Only momentum is conserved. But what is the difference between inelastic collision and completely inelastic collision? In inelastic collision, after the collision, bodies do not stick. They move separately. But in the case of completely inelastic collision, so after the collision, what happens is bodies stick and move together. But remember, in these two cases, momentum is conserved, but kinetic energy is not conserved. But what is the difference in these two cases? Here, after the collision, the colliding bodies move separately. Here, after the colliding bodies stick and move together with the same velocity. So here, based on conservation of momentum and kinetic energy, so we define collisions only two types, that is elastic and inelastic. But in elastic we have two types. So after the collision the bodies move separately, isn't it? And if momentum is conserved but kinetic energy is not conserved, and after the collision if the bodies move separately, that collision is inelastic collision. Only momentum is conserved in a collision, and after the collision if the colliding bodies stick and move together, then the collision is called completely inelastic collision. Yes. So one dimensional elastic collision. Elastic collision means, here we are discussing elastic collision, that means the collision in which momentum and kinetic energy both are conserved. One dimensional means only unidirection. So we take only either x-axis, y-axis or z-axis. So for our convenience we take a horizontal direction as x-axis. So one dimensional collision is also called as head-on collision. So for this one, consider two bodies which have elastic properties as shown below. That means, so we are considering two bodies. These two bodies have elastic properties and they are moving on a smooth surface. They are moving on a smooth surface, and the first body is moving with initial velocity u1 and the second body is moving with initial velocity u2. So after some time, here what's happening, collision is taking place. So for collision to take place, the condition must be, let u1 is greater than u2. u1 must be greater than u2, then collision takes place here. So before the collision these two are separately like this. When u1 is greater than u2, so after some time collision taking place, so collision is taking place here, and after collision they move separately like this. So the first body has velocity v1 and the second body m2 has velocity v2 after the collision. So now our intention is, so what is this collision? This collision is elastic collision. Elastic collision, that means kinetic energy is conserved, momentum is also conserved. Now our intention is to derive the equation for v1 and v2. We know m1 m2 and u1 u2. u1 u2 m1 m2 are the mass of the bodies and u1 u2 are the initial velocities. Now we want to derive the equation for v1 and v2. So for that one we apply conservation of momentum and conservation of kinetic energy. Yes, so here we can apply conservation of momentum. So initial momentum, before the collision initial momentum, that is momentum of this body plus momentum of this body, m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to momentum of the two bodies. Momentum of this body is m1 v1, momentum of this body is m2 v2. So we are applying conservation of momentum. Momentum before the collision is equal to momentum after the collision. So take the m1 common and bring this v1 term this side and bring this u2 term this side. So then we can take common m1 into u1 minus v1. We are bringing v1 here and bring this m2 u2 this side. So it becomes minus. So when you take m2 common, it becomes v2 minus u2. Now here kinetic energy is also conserved because the collision which is taking place here, that is elastic collision. So now apply initial, so final kinetic energy. Initial kinetic energy is equal to final kinetic energy of m1 u1 square plus of m2 u2 square is equal to of m1 v1 square plus of m2 v2 square. Now we are saying this equation as number 1, this equation number 2 and this equation number 3. Now again here you can cancel off. In every equation, in every term we have off. Now you can cancel this offs. Yeah, this off and this off you can cancel. Now bring this v1 square term this side and bring this u2 square term, this whole term this side. Then what happens when you take common m1? So u1 square is already there. If you bring this v1 square this side, it becomes minus. So m1 into u1 square minus v1 square. And if you take common m2 this side, on the other side, if you take m2 common here, v2 square is already there. And if you take u2 square this side, it becomes minus. So v2 square minus u2 square. Now how does it look like? A square minus b square, right? We know a square minus b square equal to a plus b into a minus b. That's what we are writing in the next step. So m1 we are writing as it is. So u1 plus v1, u1 minus v1. And you are taking m2 as it is. And again it looks like a square minus b square. So a plus b into a minus b. v2 plus u2 and v2 minus u2 we are writing like this. Now let's say this equation number 4. Now divide this equation number 4 with equation number 2. So this is the equation number 4 and this is the equation number 2. So equation number 4 we are writing as it is and we are dividing this equation number 2. We are writing like this. Now m1 gets cancelled, u1 minus v1 gets cancelled, m2 gets cancelled, v2 minus u2 gets cancelled. So now what are the terms we have? u1 plus v1 is equal to v2 plus u2. Now bring this u2 this side. So u1 minus u2 is equal to, now bring this v1 this side. So v2 minus v1. See here, what is this u1 minus u2? This is the relative velocity of u1 with respect to u2. or it is also called as the relative velocity of approach. So the first body is approaching second body, right? The first body is approaching second body. So this can be called as the relative velocity of approach before the collision. And what is v2 minus v1? So v2, the second body is moving away from first body. That means this is the relative velocity of separation after the collision. That means in LRC collision we are getting this relation. This is an important relation. Let's say this equation number 5. Yeah, from this equation you can write the relative velocity of approach. The relative velocity of approach before the collision is equal to, now what is this one? The relative velocity of separation. The relative velocity of separation after the collision. Yes, here what is our intention? Our intention is to derive the equation for v1 and v2. So for that one, now from equation 5, write down the equation for v2. So v2 is equal to, what do we write? If we bring this v1 this side, it becomes plus, right? So v2 is equal to, we can add, already we have u1 minus u2. If we bring this v1 this side, it becomes plus, right? So it becomes u1 plus v1 minus u2, isn't it? So v2 is equal to, we are getting this equation. Now substitute v2 in equation number 1. So from equation number 5, we are writing the equation for v2. Just we are bringing v1 this side, so it becomes u1 plus v1 minus u2. Now substitute this v2 in equation number 1. Where is equation number 1? This is equation number 1. m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2. That means these three terms remaining same, but in the position of v2, we have to substitute this value. Yes, so in the position of v2, if we substitute this value, we'll get like this. Just simplify this equation. This side as it is, we get m1 v1, m2 into u1, m2 into v1, m2 into u2. But what do we need here? We want to derive the equation for v1, right? So keep v1 terms here, keep this v1 terms here, and bring the remaining two terms this side. If you bring this term here, it becomes minus. If you bring this term here, it becomes plus. Now we are keeping v1 terms here and take v1 common, and we have m1 and m2. So we can take common v1 and you can add m1 plus m2. And this side, if you see, if we take common u1, we have m1 and minus m2. So if we take common u1, m1 minus m2 into u1, and we have already m2 u2, we have one more m2 u2, so 2 m2 u2. So what is our intention? Our intention is to derive the equation for v1, right? So bring this m1 by m2 here. So then what is this equation becomes? v1 is equal to the final velocity of the first body. The final velocity of the first body is equal to, what do we get? m1 minus m2 by m1 plus m2 into u1 plus 2 m2 u2 by m1 plus m2. So we are getting equation for v1. In the similar manner, now let us derive the equation for v2. So to derive the equation for v2, again we go to equation number 5. So we go to equation number 5. Yeah, we have equation number 5, this equation, right? So from this equation, now we write the equation for v1. So if you want to write the equation for v1, what do we need to do? We have to bring this v1 this side, and we have to bring the remaining two terms this side. So from the equation number 5, now we write the equation for v1. Yeah, now I'll write equation from equation 5. From equation 5, v1 is equal to we get v2 plus u2 minus u1. Now substitute v1 in equation number 1. Again we have equation number 1. What is equation number 1? Yeah, this is equation number 1. In this equation, now we want to substitute v1 value. v1 equal to, what are we doing? Just we are bringing v1 this side and we are bringing this two term this side. Then it becomes v2 plus u2 minus u1. So that's what we are writing here. v2 plus u2 minus u1. Yes, after substituting v1 is equal to this value, we get like this. So these two terms as it is, so m1 into v2, m1 into u2 minus m1 u1, and m2 v2 as it is we write. But what is our intention? We want to write the equation for v2, right? So we keep v2 term this side. We keep these two v2 term this side. We bring m1 u2, m1 u1 this side. So if we bring m1 u2, it becomes minus. If we bring m1 u1 this side, it becomes plus. Now when you take common v2 here, so we get m1 plus m2. And here we have u2 and here also we have u2. Take u2 common. So m2 minus m1. And here we have m1 u1, m1 u1, 2 m1 u1. So this is equal to, we get v2 into m1 plus m2. Just we need to write the equation for v2 here. Yes, so v2 is equal to, we get this equation. Now from this equation we can discuss few cases. That is, if the second body is at rest, if the second body is at rest, if the second body is at rest, so what happens to u2 guys? u2 equal to 0. u2 is equal to 0. Now substitute u2 equal to 0. Then what do we get guys? Now let us write the equation for v1. u2 becomes 0. So if we substitute u2 in this equation, u2 equals 0 into something 0. So then this equation becomes m1 minus m2 into u1 by m1 plus m2. We get this equation. If the second body is at rest, that means only the first body. Second body is at rest means, so this body is at rest, only this body is coming and it is making collision. Do you understand? So this body is at rest, so we are taking u2 is equal to 0. Now v2 is equal to, now substitute u2 equal to 0 here in this equation. v2 equal to 0 into something 0. Then the remaining term here we have, so 2 m1 u1 by m1 plus m2, m1 plus m2, m1 plus m2. We get this equation. That means if the second body is at rest, so directly instead of using these two equations for final velocity of the two bodies, we can use v1 and v2. Suppose v1 we are getting negative. Negative means what does it mean? The body moves in the backward direction. So whether v1 or v2, if we get v1 or v2 negative values, that means the bodies are moving negative x direction after the collision. If we get positive values, that means they are moving in the same direction. Now if we are taking the same case, and at the same time if u2 is equal to 0 and at the same time let us take m1 equal to m2, that means the both bodies move, the both bodies have same mass. Now substitute m1 equal to m2 in this equation. m1 equal to m2, m1 equal to m2 means, so m1 minus m1 0, so 0 into something 0. That means what do you get guys? v1 is equal to 0. v1 equal to 0. Now let us write the equation for v2. So v2 is equal to m1 2 m1 u1 by m1 plus m2. m1 plus m2 means, so v2 is equal to, let us write 2 m1 u1 by, again let us write m1 plus m2 means m2 is also equal to m1 m1 2 m1 plus m2 m1. So this one gets cancelled na? So v2 is equal to, what do we get? u1. That means, so here in this case what happens is, if the body is coming like this with initial velocity u1 and m1 and the second body is at rest, and if the second body is at rest, u2 is equal to 0 and collision takes place. So after the collision what happens is, this m1 comes to rest, that means v1 equal to 0, m1 stays here, but m2 moves this direction with velocity u1. That means the velocities are interchanged. So this thing happens in the case of marbles. So whenever two marbles have same mass, so if one marble comes and collide with another marble, the first marble comes to rest and the second marble moves with the initial velocity of the first marble. So these are the conditions we are taking, and if u2 equal to 0, these two equations can be used. If u2 equal to 0 and m1 and m2 both have same mass, then what happens? v1 becomes 0 and v2 is equal to u1. That means the second body moves with the initial velocity of the first body. Yeah, this is about inelastic, sorry, this is about elastic collision. So hope you understand this, guys. So we'll solve problems in the upcoming videos.